39% of American adults believe every tap, scan, and swipe brings us closer to a 2,000-year-old prophecy. A single passage in the book of Revelation warns that one day no one will be able to buy or sell without a mark on their right hand or forehead, and for nearly a century, every major shift in payment technology has been called the fulfillment of that warning. Barcodes, credit cards, microchips, and now the banking app sitting on your phone. What follows is the line connecting the original biblical text to the palm scanners, iris scanning orbs, and central bank digital currencies fueling this fear today, and the reason the belief keeps recycling itself, generation after generation. We need to start at the source. John of Patmos, traditionally identified as the Apostle John, composed the Book of Revelation during what most scholars place at around 95 AD under Emperor Domitian, though a smaller camp of academics dates it earlier, to roughly 65 to 68 AD under Nero. Chapter 13 introduces two beasts. One rises from the sea as a symbol of political and imperial power, and the second rises from the land. The second beast is the one that matters here because this second beast forces everyone to receive a mark and dictates who can participate in commerce. The King James Version reads, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Two details in that passage power everything that follows. The mark goes on the body, specifically the right hand or the forehead, and that is where it connects to modern biometric scanners. But the detail that really matters sits in the middle of the verse, the part about commerce. No mark, no buying, no selling. That economic language makes this passage feel modern in a way almost nothing else in ancient scripture does. Charagma, the Greek word translated as mark, referred in the 1st century to the imperial seal stamped on Roman documents and to brands burned onto slaves to show ownership. Most scholars tie 666 to Emperor Nero Caesar because transliterating Neron Kaiser into Hebrew letters and adding up their numerical values produces exactly 666. Some early manuscripts read 616 instead, which matches the Latin spelling of Nero's name that drops a letter worth 50. Papyrus 115, the oldest surviving manuscript fragment of Revelation chapter 13 and dating to around 250 to 300 AD, reads 616. The church father Irenaeus, writing around 180 AD, confirmed that all the most approved and ancient copies carried 666. The scholarly reading points clearly at Roman imperial worship and 1st century economic coercion, but that reading never shaped American culture the way the other one did. Futurism dominates American Christianity's reading of Revelation, the belief that the book describes events still to come, including a literal future Antichrist who will institute a literal mark required for commerce. John Nelson Darby systematized this view in the 1800s. The Schofield Reference Bible embedded it in 1909, and then 3 works detonated it into the mainstream. Hal Lindsey's 1970 book, The Late Great Planet Earth, sold over 35 million copies, and the New York Times labeled it the #1 nonfiction bestseller of the decade. Lindsey put it this way: in our computerized society, where we are all numbered from birth to death, it seems completely plausible that someday in the near future, the numbers racket will consolidate and we will have just one number for all our business, money, and credit transactions. That book traveled all the way to the Reagan White House, where cabinet members, including Attorney General Ed Meese and Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger, reportedly shared dispensational views, and Lindsey himself briefed Pentagon staff. $68,000. That's what it cost to produce the 1972 film A Thief in the Night, which depicted a United Nations entity requiring the mark on forehead or hand to buy or sell. Decades of church screenings generated a claimed 300 million viewers and traumatized an entire generation of youth group attendees in the process. Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins launched the Left Behind series in 1995, running 16 novels that sold over 65 million copies combined, with 7 of them reaching #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Book 8, titled The Mark, depicted the Antichrist instituting a mandatory biochip. None of these were fringe publications. They were mainstream American culture, and they built the template for a cycle that has repeated like clockwork ever since. The cycle runs on a simple loop. A new technology changes how people identify themselves or handle money, and within months, someone maps it onto Revelation chapter 13. Social Security numbers caught the blame in the 1930s, when fundamentalist Christians labeled the SSN as the mark and Franklin D. Roosevelt as the Antichrist. That opposition generated court cases stretching into the 2000s, and in 1986, the Supreme Court confronted the issue directly in Bowen versus Roy, a case about compelled SSN use in government benefits. Credit cards followed in the 1950s. Pat Robertson captured the trajectory in 1984 when he wrote, "It would not be too difficult, technologically, to move from the smart card to a microchip implanted in the hand." UPC barcodes arrived in 1973, and that is when a woman named Mary Stuart Relf published, "When Your Money Fails, the 666 System is Here," a book that reached at least its 16th printing by 1982. Relf proclaimed that 666 hid inside every barcode, and that soon, laser beams would be writing 666 on the foreheads of all those except the faithful. George Laurer, the engineer who invented the barcode, spent years responding to the claim. His answer was, "There is nothing sinister about this, nor does it have anything to do with the Bible's mark of the beast. It is simply a coincidence, like the fact that my first, middle, and last name all have 6 letters." October 13th, 2004 brought FDA approval for the Verichip, an injectable RFID chip about the size of a grain of rice, and people called it the mark of the beast almost immediately. Only about 2,000 chips ever ended up implanted in humans before manufacture stopped entirely by 2010. COVID vaccines triggered the same response. Kanye West called the vaccine the mark of the beast. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene called vaccine passports the mark of the beast in a March 2021 video. A YouGov poll measured the depth of that belief, finding 28% of Americans convinced that Bill Gates wanted to use mass vaccination to implant tracking microchips, a number that climbed to 44% of Republicans and 50% of Fox News viewers. Every time, the technology changes. Every time, the pattern holds. Something has shifted because for the first time, the technologies being flagged do the specific thing Revelation 13 describes. They control who can buy and sell. Amazon One, a palm scanning payment system, launched in September 2020. By 2024, it operated inside more than 500 U.S. Whole Foods stores and over 150 third-party venues, including stadiums and airports. Customers paid by holding up a hand, and some religious commentators noted the overlap with the passage's mention of the right hand. Palm was now part of the conversation. Sam Altman's WorldCoin, now rebranded as World, launched its iris-scanning orb on July 24, 2023, scanning eyes to create a cryptographic proof of identity. 26 million people had signed up by mid-2025, even as at least 15 countries banned, suspended, or opened investigations into the technology. Prophecy News Watch said, WorldCoin is not the mark of the beast, but it is a precursor technology. Commentators drew a specific parallel, noting that WorldCoin scans the eye area near the forehead, while Amazon One scanned the palm. Between the two systems, both body parts from Revelation 13, verse 16 are covered. Biohacks International, a Swedish company, has implanted approximately 6,000 people with rice grain-sized NFC chips placed between the thumb and index finger. Those chips open doors, validate train tickets, and process payments. Three Square Market in Wisconsin became the first American employer to offer microchip implants to staff in 2017. Implants moved from experiment to reality. Cash keeps losing ground at the same time. 14% of all U.S. consumer payments now go through cash, a steep drop from 26% in 2019, while credit cards lead at 35%. Sweden handles just 10% of in-store purchases with cash. China's digital payment transactions reached roughly $10 trillion in 2025, and the COVID pandemic pushed the shift even faster, with in-store mobile payment usage growing 29% in the US during 2020 alone. Cash is declining as digital options rise. 137 countries now explore central bank digital currencies, up from just 35 in May 2020. China's digital yuan alone has processed 3.48 billion transactions worth roughly $2.37 trillion. Digital systems are already operating at scale. These fears are not staying inside church walls. Beverly Butcher, a coal miner in West Virginia, refused to use his employer's biometric hand scanner because he believed it fulfilled the prophecy, and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a jury award of $586,861 in his favor, affirming that employers must accommodate sincere religious beliefs about biometrics. Across the world in Mizoram, a heavily Christian state in India, an organization called Mizos Against Biometric Enrollment told members that the Aadhaar biometric ID system represented the beginning of the mark of the beast, and roughly 100 government employees chose voluntary retirement rather than link their documents to the system. Real money, real careers, and real court rulings now hang on this belief. Religious fears and secular privacy concerns point at the same target from entirely different directions, and that overlap creates something hard to dismiss. Brett Scott, author of Cloud Money, frames the cashless push as an alliance between big finance and big tech, working to replace public money with private digital money. His warning carries weight. Think about the crazy levels of economic terror that a person would face if they got excluded from the payment system in a cashless society. The American Civil Liberties Union formally opposes cashless stores over privacy erosion and harm to low-income communities. And when Canada froze truckers' bank accounts in 2022, that case became the go-to example of how digital financial infrastructure can turn into a weapon. Craig Kuster of Luther Seminary and Richard Bauckham of Cambridge both argue the mark referred to Roman imperial worship, not future technology. Pastor Matt Chandler of the Village Church pushed back publicly in 2024, telling his audience that the view of the mark as merely a credit card or chip misses the point of revelation entirely. None of that has slowed the futurist camp. which claims 65% of evangelical leaders. David Jeremiah writes that the mark may be an electronic identification signature via cell phone or other device. Robert Jeffress calls an Antichrist-led future with implanted chips not just a possibility, it is a certainty. Greg Laurie connects digital payments to end-times prophecy openly and often. Early 2026 pulls in opposite directions. The United States has effectively banned retail central bank digital currencies after President Trump signed an executive order in January 2025 prohibiting agencies from establishing or promoting them, and the House followed by passing the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act in July 2025. 137 countries continue exploring central bank digital currencies regardless. Amazon pulled the plug on its Palm payment system in January 2026, citing limited consumer adoption, while WorldCoin keeps expanding even as countries ban it. Sweden, the most cashless country on the planet, has reversed course, with its central bank now backing mandatory cash acceptance for essentials. Cash protection laws keep spreading. Massachusetts has mandated that businesses accept cash since 1978, and since 2019, New Jersey, Colorado, Connecticut, New York City, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and others have added their own versions. Switzerland gathered over 100,000 signatures to force a referendum on writing cash acceptance to its constitution. No major Christian denomination has released an official statement equating digital payments with the mark of the beast. Individual pastors, prophecy ministries, and social media accounts drive the conversation. The cycle holds, with each new technology getting called the mark, failing to deliver the apocalypse, and quietly giving way to the next candidate. But strip away the prophecy debate, and a question remains that does not need theology to carry weight. Who should hold the power to decide whether a person can buy or sell? That question surfaced in the 1st century over Roman imperial seals. A Rand Corporation researcher raised it before a Senate subcommittee in 1968 when he warned about the privacy dangers of a cashless society. People who read Revelation literally ask it right now, and so do people who have never cracked the book open. The mark on the hand may be a metaphor. The ability to cut someone off from the economy is not.